the masters.
I am going to be adjusting some audio things in a bit. But sorry, everybody, for being late. We have moved into a brand new room / not new for us because this is where we always are. But yeah, we have a new audio program thing that I can test out. So now there should be less background noise throughout the podcast. I'll be messing with that. With me.
Huh? Oh, are we introducing? Sorry, I was going through the chat. I wanted to read back on that aggressive comment, but I digress. And JC, me.
I'm Niche, or the Niche, or Joy likes to call me Lady D.
I really like Lady D.
I like Lady D
boss
as well.
bitch title right there. I was saying if she became a performer or like MC'd or whatever, Lady D. It's like Queen Latifah. It's like
AKA the Niche.
Okay.
The Niche.
AKA the Niche. That works too.
For Sam, it's the Niche. Everyone else.
Yeah.
And
I am.
That guy right there.
I'm the dude. I'm the original dude, by the way. I'm the original dude. Duderino, Duderuski, the dude, Dude Meister, Duderific. It's all the same.
Duderific.
I was going to say misdemeanor, but that's Missy Elliott. You can't have it. I'm sorry.
Hey, so we are back. We're back in the game. We're back. We're in our new digs. This is actually the room behind 100 Thomas, where we typically stream. Where we stream, always, not typically.
Oh my God! I'm sorry. One of my friends is watching right now. It's my cousin. Hey, Isaiah. I see you. Thank you for watching. I love you so much.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I haven't seen this person like years.
JC losing it.
I get emotional about my people.
All right.
I haven't been home in a long time.
We're not going to be able to stream in here after today's podcast.
Yeah.
We're all right. They're changing
sorry.
classes right now. Hey, and so we're in the back room of 100 Thomas. This is where we store all of our streaming equipment, and we are going to, from here on out, be running the podcast out of this room because it just makes it a lot easier than moving all this equipment around campus.
You know, unless Joy gets us kicked out for screaming.
Yeah, unless we get kicked out. Hey, so listen, y'all. Let's before we start to get some questions from the stream, including some questions that we just really haven't answered forever and ever and ever, because we keep getting the same questions over and over again from the same people, and we don't answer them. But I'm really bound and determined to answer them today. But yesterday, let's just say something about yesterday's class. It was definitely a new thing, a new idea, a new way of just opening it up to just see what everybody has to say about hair. I felt like we got into the surface a little bit, but it's hard, man. It's really hard to kind of go deeper beneath the surface. But what are your just we can start with the Niche. Any Lady D?
Well, what is the question?
Well, yeah, just what you think in general.
Yesterday, how was it?
Yesterday.
I liked it. It was more of an open dialogue about hair instead of you going, okay, well, this is how hair is, and if you don't like it, then we're going to talk to other people and figure out what you don't like about it. Like, I like the fact that it was, tell me about your hair. I'm going to ask you some questions in case people don't know, and then we can just talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then I like the hair chart, but you didn't find one that had 4C on it, and
Dude,
you got
I
called out.
purposely didn't use that.
True. Why?
I
like that girl called that out
off.
too, because I also caught it and initially calling the pre-shots and telling people, the camera ops, what to keep an eye out for on different types of hair. And there was this one person in the back with 4C hair, and I said it. So I like that girl called it out, because that's important.
Listen, man, but you understand what it was, right? First off, most people in that room don't even know where those hair charts came from. Mm-hmm. They don't know the person that developed them, when, how, and where, and so on and so forth, right? So, this is a new thing. This is about the time you all were born, a little bit before you were born, obviously, but way before you were born, actually, but not. Anyway, I thought it would be more interesting to use the original chart, and that didn't include 4C, but also a lot of the charts, the newer charts, they only have one. They don't have 1A, 1B, 1C. It's just one. So there are lots and lots of different charts. So I just, for whatever reason, just thought it would be good to use the original one. But it's all good, man. Anything else? I think the thing that stands out for me, I will say, that was really interesting at the end when the one woman was when I said, "Hey, who has bad hair?" And so the one woman was talking. I forget what her name was, but then I asked the white woman in front of her if she has any idea what she's talking about, like how she does her hair or whatever, and she said no. And then I asked her, who identified as African American, if she has any idea how a white woman manages her hair, and she had no idea, right? And so it's like, really, people really don't know about very basic things like one another's hair.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, it varies from person to person, but I know, like, since I've lived with my roommate for 2 years, she's white. I just see her take care of her hair, and I'm like, okay, like, she just has to wash it and brush it, and she'll be fine. Sometimes she'll straighten it, but then, like, that's if she wants to feel like she's going to be pretty. But, like, it's not, her hair isn't as big a deal as me, like, taking a whole afternoon to try and brush out my hair and wash it. Yeah, twist it if I'm feeling crazy. Like, this, I just pushed it back because I didn't feel like dealing with it.
But before you had a white roommate, you really didn't know about how...
I didn't realize that hair care could be as easy breezy as what she was, because I lived with my sister before I ever lived with my roommate.
Yeah. And
it was mostly like we took care of our hair the same way, pretty much until she left for college. And then she started changing it up to have her hair more natural, and like she started doing more research into it.
Yo, you know, the straightening piece, people don't understand what it takes.
Sister, I'm sorry, my sister just hopped on the chat. Hi.
Oh, what's up, sis?
I told her to
what's
watch
your sister's name?
Natasha.
Latash.
Yeah, the Tosh. Let's call her the Tosh.
Not sponsored.
Yo, hey, JC.
Yeah.
How about you, man? What stood out from yesterday's class?
I felt like there was a really good flow in the responses and what was being said. There might have been one or two things that was said, and that's not how I viewed something, or my understanding. And we talked about it afterwards. Like, one of them was the Brazilian blowout, like what that is, and versus perm and relaxers. Like, for me, a Brazilian blowout isn't chemical at all. It's the process of the different techniques of heat to make your hair straight. Yeah. Even if they're spraying something after, like hairspray is used to decrease frizz, but it's not anything with any type of chemical bonding and breaking down of follicles like perms or relaxers. It's like, I'm going to wash you, I'm going to blow dry it, I'm going to press it, I'm going to use a hot comb too, and the little rollers that they put in the stove. And
I'm going to burn my scalp all along the way.
As soon as you brought up a perm, I felt it on my scalp because I remember getting burned so bad by all the chemicals when I was younger.
Yeah, man. I mean, people don't really understand what that is. Like, the woman whose photo I put up, right, who's an anchor, and I'm looking at her hair and I'm thinking, man, whoever her producer, whoever fired her, for example, right, they clearly have no idea. First off, it was illegal to fire her on the basis of her hair, but they have no idea what she did to get her hair like that every single day.
It's a really big conversation, and I think it wasn't. I like the slides you had and the specific example with the anchor, but it's a much bigger conversation than that. Even to come down to our military.
Yeah, exactly.
And specifically with locks.
Yeah,
wasn't. I think they've changed it now. It's
just
fine,
changed it. Yep.
But prior to, not cool on like an official level.
Yeah.
Even if your hair was in a bun, it's still just like, no, that's unkempt.
Yeah. I think the idea that people can try to stop or pass laws or whatever it is based on 300,000 years of human evolution is just inherently problematic. You know, like it's the same as saying in order to work at this place, you know, you come from your culture, your people in your culture are just on average much smaller than other people, right? And so in order to be in this environment, you're going to have to wear stilts, like, 8-inch stilts. It's no different, really. And you can't wear your hair naturally, right? You can't stand naturally, 5'3". You need 8 inches. You got to be a 5 foot, 10 or 11 or whatever, right? And so I find that inherently problematic and worthy of conversation.
I also appreciated one of the, before the closing, before you started taking questions.
Can you hand me that thing? It's bothering me. I'm taking the shot.
Before you start taking questions, and there was the volunteer for the who has bad hair.
Yeah.
I appreciate her ability to be like, okay, and the way she spoke on it, and being on camera. Obviously, she could clearly see herself on the jumbotron and stuff. Because I think it's important information, but then also would have been interesting to dive into the different types of care for everyone. Like the way I'd have to take care of my hair, Niche probably has a completely different routine. And the girl who was speaking, and the girl who was down on the front.
Yeah, it's so complex for everybody.
Yeah.
Including all the white people who have a little bit more frizzy hair, a little bit less frizzy hair. If you don't put conditioner in, it does this. If you do, it does that. I mean, it's just, the combinations and permutations are almost endless.
And how and why.
Yeah.
How and why. Like, just the behaviors of our hair. Like, how less it takes. Like, maybe white people have to wash their hair every day or 2 days.
You shouldn't.
It's more oily.
You shouldn't. However,
or whatever.
Jonathan Van Ness would be very mad at me because I wash my hair every single day. Do you use conditioner?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
What?
It's just more chemicals.
Yeah, I just use shampoo.
See,
put it in for a couple minutes,
that's
and then
interesting.
while my shampoo's like working its magic, doing whatever shampoo does, then I wash my face, and then I just rinse them both off at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I get out of the shower, literally just take a towel, done, done.
I feel
you probably
personally
got
attacked
in
by
like
your
a mug.
routine.
Right, that was so backwards.
Yeah.
Usually, if anything, I'm not putting shampoo in my hair, especially if it ain't sulfate free. Because what
Exactly.
shampoo does is strip the dirt out in the first place, and the conditioner is to put things back in and moisturize and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then a towel, please. I'm going to scruff my hair with a t-shirt before I use a towel.
I
because
don't
of the
even
rips
scruff my
and
hair with
grooves on it.
yes.
And then that shit'll pull your hair out, and then you got split ends, and then you got breakage, and now half of your hair is half the length of the other side, and then everything's dry and brittle. Like,
I really shouldn't be washing my hair every day, but I just always do because I'm a greasy person. Like I sweat a lot. I'm greasy.
Yeah.
Like my family doesn't claim that we're Italian at all, but I say that we have to have a little Italian in us because
why?
Because Italians are
Greasy?
at least more stereotypically greasy. Like so.
I think that's stereotype is because they used to use a lot of grease in their hair, not that they're more.
I don't
that
know
their hair
about
is
that.
greasy.
That tickles
Either
me.
that or Germans are greasy because I know for a fact I'm mostly German. But
I think it's just it's mostly from the European. When we look at European admixtures based on geography, it's mostly just we see a range of differences between people with particularly dry hair and more greasy hair, and I think it's pretty much balanced throughout the different regions. But I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that I am.
I
All right,
think.
okay, go ahead. One more.
I was just gonna say when it came down to greasiness, I think I'm interested in knowing if it's just human nature to have the process of oils build up in your hair rate all the same or relatively like it's just a bodily function. But where it differs in our hair is how it can either benefit or overwhelm the hair based on how it is. So straighter, thin hair, I guess it's easier to see the buildup, or if I think that's where like greasiness and I guess it would be another form of matte hair when it comes to having straight hair. Whereas hair like mine and Niche, we want it doesn't look like, the more that builds up for our hair, the better it is because we want the moisture in our hair.
Right, exactly.
And to lock it in, which
I
is
know
why then the conversation, one thing that always blows people's minds when it comes up, if it's like a first time they're hearing, is the frequency of how we wash our hair for Black people who are natural.
Yep.
Once a month. Maybe every other week.
Yep.
On top of the daily stuff that we do and putting in products on top of it and stuff that's already being processed naturally every day.
It's so fascinating how much we don't know different people's bodily functions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And bodies and skins and hairs and so on. I mean, it's really fascinating to me, right? And I know I have know a lot of white folks who have adopted children with sub-Saharan African ancestry, and have really had to learn about the hair stuff, man. I had a friend who had a neighbor adopted, had 4 daughters, actually, who were black. She's white. And one day she was out in public, and some black woman said, "Hey, listen, sweetheart, their hair is just a ragged mess. Let me come over and give you a lesson about the hair," right?
Yeah, that was a conversation with Kim Kardashian when she had her first child. I think there was a clip, and she was learning how to braid. But I think the conversation, it went more towards a conversation of appropriation, because that's a family and their imagery when it comes to fashion and trends and everything with beauty. Yeah. It's like, oh, so you can walk around with cornrows and think like that's a trend because you did it, but you don't even understand the whole point of it or how to do it. And now that you have black children,
or you can pay someone else to do
right.
it. But if you really got to do it and figure it out.
Well, like, props to her. I think she's much better now. But that is a real thing, especially with mixed children or people who adopt, and specifically the dynamics of it being a white family with black children.
I know, a black family that adopted a white child, and it's like, man, you gotta figure out how to do the hair, man. It's a whole different world. So
I just realized that we never set up the back of the room.
What do you mean?
So I'm gonna go do that now while you guys continue talking.
Cool, dope.
What do you mean the back of the room?
You'll see.
He's going to do a magic trick.
Oh my gosh!
First, we have all these wires.
Hey, so what do we have? Do we have any questions on the stream at all that we need to address?
Shaving.
What?
Well, wait till I get back on.
Well, what kind of shaving? Like manscaping? We talking about bald heads? That was
talking
cool
about
too.
Just like
the Asian guy,
or like
the Asian guy yesterday with the baldness.
You got a lot.
The Asian volunteer that came down, because I was waiting for her when you asked like what's good hair and healthy, and she mentioned thick. And she also, I think before he spoke, commented on like receding hairlines, because that is a really common thing for men and Asian women as well. Thinning of the hair, and then the receding of it.
Yeah.
So that was cool too that came up.
We didn't set up the. It's not far on. It's not far enough over though.
I'm putting it behind me.
Yeah, go ahead.
There you go. We forgot to mention today is National Coming Out Day
month.
Yeah.
So if you're gay, be proud of yourself.
Right. Another thing I was saying, I need to make it back home to go to Outs Fest. Me and my friends would go do that every year, along with Pride. But I probably haven't been there in like 2 years for Outs Fest.
So let's go, man. What else do we got?
Jamalai, I think that's how you say his name. He said like shaving for people with black and white beards is different.
Oh, true. You want to talk about beards? Oh, we can.
I mean, I can't
beards.
talk nothing about this. I don't understand
like
men and their hair or like anything about them. So like, I mean, go off. But like,
I mean, obviously I'm a woman and I don't know either. But like, I've touched plenty.
Well, hey, so
but grooming.
Let me respond.
Can Sam speak on that with his goatee going on?
Can I respond to what Natasha said?
Yeah.
Which is if you're going to have black children, you have to take time to educate yourself about their culture and hair. Mm-hmm. And I think it's true. But educating oneself exists on a continuum, right? So for my neighbors, as an example, they had adopted one young woman. They had one child, and then several years later adopted 3 more who were all sisters. And they were pretty educated, but it's like there's an immense amount of knowledge, an immense amount of things to really educate yourself on, and there's only so much time in the day, right? Mm-hmm. And so I agree for certain that people need to, when you are creating families cross-culturally, it's really important to have a degree of education, please. That's really important.
You should at least be conscious of like there's a reason behind why we do the hairstyles that we do. So if you're Like just doing it and not understanding why is kind of defeating the purpose of it.
Yeah, right. But what I want to say also, as someone who's constantly trying to educate myself about so many things, it's like it takes a lot of time.
sliding
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I at least jump in a little bit. Hey, so also, can we?
Oh, snap.
We still have the other two in the cabinet.
Okay. We're still, hang on, folks, on the stream.
Just
What are
perfecting
the
a few things.
stereotypes?
To answer a couple of quick questions, Jin Kim asked, "Where's Pennsylvania at?" It is in the East Coast of the United States. I wanted to ask, how is the audio now? I've been messing with it for a little bit. N.A. John or Joan or Jean, however you pronounce it.
John.
I know it's in French, it's that, but who
All
knows?
right.
First time on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to listen to us.
4C represent.
What were the stereotypes?
Well, abracadabra. Before we get to that, no
I'm
one is
saying
on.
it so like in the meantime they could type it.
No one is on the Social 19 YouTube account. It's so if you see Darnisha, Joy, or myself, we're the Social 19 people that are on the chat. Watching from Korea, welcome. And I think
We're gonna
that
have
catches
a
us
class
up.
we're gonna have a class on Korea in about a month. Actually, less than a month, in about 3 weeks. We have a visitor coming from Korea, and we're gonna do the whole class. I'm gonna set up a bunch of things, do some case studies. I'll have her up a little bit, and then we're gonna do a podcast with her, in particular. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We can talk about a lot of things.
Also, Social 19 is not a school. It's not even a college.
It's just a class.
It's a class at a university in Pennsylvania, known as the Pennsylvania State University.
The Pennsylvania State
No, we
University.
can't say it
Not
like
to
that.
be confused.
We can't say the Pennsylvania State University because then we sound too much like the Buckeyes because they go the Ohio State University.
Nothing
They
good
always
comes from
have that.
Ohio.
They always
Okay,
have that.
hang on. So let's go with. Can you read John Doe's question?
I want to know who John Doe is. No.
How tired are you of people in your class bringing up some science that say more features is more attract or say that's I can't because I'm dyslexic as hell. But the question really is, are you sick and tired of people trying to bring up biological science as explaining attraction through features?
No, not at all. I don't. In fact, nobody ever does. In fact, anytime anybody brings up something like that, it's a relief because it shows that they're actually thinking about some things. And so for me, I like it, when students question anything that I say and challenge, at some level, challenge it. So I appreciate that. I don't like passivity, so I want you to be engaged, and I want you to, at some level. The other day, we just, we had the woman who was bringing up this kind of sociobiology approach, and sociobiology is kind of really emerged in the late 80s and early 90s, and kind of started to take off with the idea that our biological characteristics were really shaping sociological or cultural factors and forces of people. So, meaning that people were, because of our biology was shaping lots of choices, let's say, about the kinds of things that we do or the kinds of things that we like. And it gets, pretty deep. And the most sort of basic level is with gender differences, right? It's like men are inherently different than women, and so it leads to certain behaviors and thoughts and feelings and all sorts of things, right? So the idea that was brought up in class the other day as well, there are some studies or people are saying, science, that a lot of our attraction, it's not just sociological. In fact, that it's really biologically based, that certain people are just inherently more attractive to other people because maybe they're biologically we see them as better mates or more, or any number of things, right? And I was saying, well, that I didn't handle that very well, but the idea is that a lot of those hypotheses that emerged in the late 80s and the 90s are untestable. And so you can't go back 300 years of evolution, just of Homo sapiens, let's say, and like really be able to test those things out and understand the degree to which they're happening all over the world in lots of different cultures at lots of different points in time. And so people have kind of stopped making those grandiose statements. And they were all just hypotheses, actually. They were never really tested, or very few of them were. So, but I just, so no, the answer is I'm not, I like that. I like when people are thinking, that's important.
And some thoughts about that argument that was made or that was presented to the class. It's interesting because if we had more biological purposes behind our attraction, a lot of things that are as they are today wouldn't be a thing. Like, for one, we would always be attracted to the same type of person because it would be the thing that would allow for us to reproduce the most. So we would so men, first off, there would be no gay people. Second off, all men would be attracted to women with large hips and
or whatever it is,
and big breasts, because those are biologically better at producing children and feeding children, blah, 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 blah.
Well, again, that was one of the original hypotheses,
right?
Those sorts of things.
And it's not.
So why would we have any after so many generations? Why would we have anybody who didn't have any women, for example, who didn't have large hips? Like, they would have just sort of, scuttled themselves out of the human admixture, DNA admixture, right?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't see it at all. But the idea. But this is important. It's we're moving science forward, right? So it's really it has value. But that was the idea. I think her response was simply I was making just sort of a funny. I thought it was sort of funny, but it was also kind of stupid. But I was trying to be stupid in a way. But just that we could be socialized to be attracted to anything, to any body type, size, or shape, or features, or whatever the case is. Right?
And I think we are. Like, if you look back in time, the number one, like, big, like, fat people were the thing, because that meant that you could afford food, you could have, your family would be able to survive off of that food, because obviously, since you are big, you can afford it. Well, and now the culture is more, and this is part of what I want to talk about when we talk about the queer class, but, like, especially in the gay community, thin is everything, and anybody who isn't thin isn't anything. Like, they're nothing.
Yeah.
So, or at least they're the least attracted. So, cultures will shift, and because of that cultural shift, it's less of, like, for me, almost it's like biology almost has nothing to do with it, because it, like, I'm sure somewhat, but, like, to like, the likelihood of you to have children, well, you can marry a woman and have, like, try to have a child with a woman who has whatever X, Y, and Z things biologically, but if she still can't have children.
Or a guy, yeah.
So,
or trying to find a husband to produce children. Yeah, well, okay, so I think I would say that, it's incredibly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I know I like to say this because this is the line of a generalist, that when I just say something is really, really complicated, it gives me an out, like I don't have to dig into it. But yeah, it's just, anyway, that was my thing. The niche.
Yes.
What do you have? How about Tuesday's class?
What was
Tuesday's class is one of my favorite classes we've ever had.
Tuesday is when we were, I was really responding to the fact that, the previous couple weeks earlier, when a lot of students in the dialogues and the discussions, remember when I brought lots of students up in the front and so on? First off, so a lot of students were saying that they weren't happy with how I did it and what I did, and were speculating that I was racist. And I am racist. Aren't we all a little bit racist?
I mean, you get called racist every other day. This isn't new.
I am? What, on the stream? In life?
Yeah.
Stream, definitely on the YouTube comments, for sure.
Okay, so But the thing is, most of the people who were having the hardest time dealing with what I was doing in class were white people and white liberals, right? And so, and I think that's where a lot of discomfort just came in, or it comes in. And so it was, but once again, trying to point out the idea that, well, when white people are uncomfortable and they shut down the conversation, that elevates them. And so that, because it means that we don't have to really engage in a deep level in the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
JC, you're back in the game. What did you think about that class?
I liked it because I think before we started, I usually always ask Jeff, what are we talking about? Granted, no one ever knows of what we're talking about before you get here. And
You mean in class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was saying that I wanted to talk about the case with the white police officer who had killed the guy in his apartment, and she's got 10 years. And how, but the thing that was bothering me the most was the family and the justice system members, the way they were just like coddling this woman for what she did. And granted, okay, let's say it was an accident and it's terrible, but it was just like, to me, it wasn't coincidental for the response to be the response because it's this white woman crying, because we've seen it time and time. There's something with coming to the rescue or to the defense or to supply the comfort for white women in their fucking tears. Like the family, like on one thing, I'm all about forgiveness because that's the only way I think with you moving on and growing for yourself and not to be bitter and holding anger. And so I get that because there was another interview with the family and later on why, because I think the brother had hugged her.
Yeah.
But
the man who died. His brother.
Yeah. And it's I lost my train of thought. So I not knocking that, but it was just like that reaction with the judge, with just everyone. It's just like, dang, but what about the family though? What about my man who was minding his fucking business in his house?
All right, hang on.
So
let me
I thought like that it came back to the class. That was, I think, I didn't know that the class was called White Discomfort, I think. And the word I was using was fragility. So I like that conversation and the fact that you called the class out. And it's something noticeable over the semesters on how people respond and how sensitive the groups have become and how they respond to things. So I liked it because it's something I like tackling, although it was specifically towards the execution of the activities and whatever their views were on. But I do think it is ironic, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the people who don't identify as those groups, usually the people that have the power over those groups are the ones that speak on it when someone's trying to address it or educate people on it. Because it's like, you're going to dismantle their shit. It's like, don't tell them that, because then shit going to change, and then I'm not above them.
Okay, so here, let me go back to the example of the police officer. So I'm going to push back on you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a manslaughter charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly was an accident. I don't how he was treated. If you remember the case, right? How the police went in and they collected all this evidence and they found a little bit of weed and all that kind of stuff, which I just find inherently
and then the narrative
problematic.
behind that.
They're mostly, the police will say like, well, it's a crime scene, so we're going to do that in every crime scene. So okay, I get that. I'll let that go for a second. But clearly, it's a tragic accident. Okay, I mean, I think we can just assume it's a tragic accident. I think you have to assume that. Do you assume that?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know if there was tape or anything. I haven't delved in it to the most. It's things that I just see when I'm scrolling. But a lot of times when I see shit like that, I'm like, all right, I'm tired.
But there wasn't a crime scene prior to the incident starting.
But when I did discover that, it was just like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Okay, listen, man. So no, I got that. But once again, I've sort of, in be really saying, all right, hang on, let me actually let me listen to what the police are saying. Let me listen to what the military are saying. Let me really listen to focus on what the procedures are, what they really are, right? What they're supposed to be.
Are you talking about her actions or the actions
No,
afterwards?
first off, I'm just talking about the actions of the police afterwards.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, they in fact, they follow procedure. Okay, got it. Dude, how often does it happen in lots of other cases? Probably happens in most every case, but they're not publicized, and so we don't know.
You mean
about
with them going in afterwards?
Yeah, it's
or
a crime scene,
the
so
way what they disclose and how they disclose it?
What they did afterwards, how they disclosed
Because that's
it
the
in that
thing.
way, that's actually
That's
for
a
me,
big
problem.
thing. That's a big trend in any incident when it comes to a person of color and something that happens in the moment after the fact. There's the thing that's on the headline is some shit that they did in the past to plaster them
Yeah.
as violent, a gang member, a thug, dropped out of school or whatever. But what does that have to do with the intent and the things that carried out in the time and place?
Well, no, it doesn't, and that's the power of in the case, and in this particular case, it's the power of the police to protect their own. Like, let's just drop this little idea here that we found marijuana in his apartment.
And that's
Well,
where the frustration
come on,
comes
man.
from, though.
No, I hear
with
that, and
her.
I think that's a problem. But let's go back to the family, to the forgiveness piece, right?
I think it's important to mention that they were an African family as well.
Yeah, exactly. And really,
I don't know if it was
I just
Nigerian
wonder.
or Ghanaian.
Okay, so here's a question, right? So across the board, so here's this white woman police officer thinks that the story is, if you didn't, let me just tell the story really fast. She comes home from work. She walks up to her apartment. She's a police officer. She's in her uniform. She has her gun, with her because she just got off work. She walks up to her door. Her door is ajar. She walks in. There's a man. It's dark. There's a man inside her apartment. She says something to him to freeze, to do. I don't know exactly what she said, but she tells him, gives a command to him. He doesn't do it. She says it again. I have no idea. But then she shoots him and then she kills him. Well, it turns out she wasn't at her apartment. She was at a different apartment, one floor down below. That she got off at the wrong floor, and they all look alike. And she just wasn't paying attention to the numbers, and so the door was ajar because it was his apartment. It wasn't her apartment. And so she was walking into his place. And so she's thinking it's an intruder. And so she shoots him. It's not an intruder. He's home just having pizza, having dinner in his apartment. Okay. Hugely tragic. Really, just tragic, right? It's like, oh my gosh, right? So this crazy gun culture that we're in, that it's like, oh my gosh, can we just stop? But nonetheless, right? But she's a guy. Okay, so
and I want to know what happened in the apartment. Did you say she called out and no one responded?
She was
or he
mostly
in the middle
doorway.
of eating
No,
something?
he was right there, and she told him to do some kind of command, like drop to the ground or do whatever. But he's not gonna. He's like,
Right.
for him, he's sitting. He's in his apartment, and someone walks in and tells him to do something.
Yeah,
like,
what I'm
he's not
trying to
gonna
get
follow
at is
her.
like, at what point, like, okay, let's say gun safety laws, or even if she wasn't a police officer and she's just someone who has a gun, because that's what we can do with our Second Amendment. And there are steps like warning shots or stuff like that, or commanding someone to do something, or warning them that you're going to do it at least twice or whatever. These are like the technical things. But it's like in the moment when it comes to the person in the space and what the threat really is to you. Just because I'm not getting on my knees because you told me to, but I'm standing there like, what are you talking about? That don't mean
Eating
shoot
my
me in my
pizza.
fucking chest.
Listen, man. I am with you 100%. I am feeling like we have created a world of fear that is way beyond what it needs to be. And she's a trained police officer, so you give a command, they don't follow. Maybe you give it twice. I don't, whatever. And you shoot to kill. You don't shoot to wound them or whatever. That's just the nature of it, right? So, look, it's hugely tragic. It's just, oh my God, one of these things that you just can't even imagine it could possibly happen, right? But it does. What I thought was really fascinating was his family. So he's tragically killed. His family speaks out in court at the sentencing phase and one by one forgives her, right? And hugs her and says, like, we forgive you. We're not going to hate you, right? And the judge, who is a black woman, as well, is saying, I sat through this case. This is really horrible. You made the comment about white tears, but listen, just for the moment, imagine that truthfully it is just purely a horrific, tragic event that any of us could be caught up in. And it's not a gun, because we don't own guns and carry concealed weapons. But it just assumed the tears are absolutely genuine. Like, oh my, well, she said, I mean, it's like, I wish I'd killed myself than to killed him. Right? I mean, let's just assume that all of that is true, right? I wish I had died instead of him. It's just so, but what's fascinating is turn it around. How, and I don't know, like, I know it's happened many, many times, obviously, but just to this idea that white people have such a fear of, you know, it's like that black people and African people in this particular case are so often so forgiving and it's not talked about in that way. I mean, here's a family that's just incredibly forgiving, right? You know, Bassam's going to be in class on Tuesday. It's like a similar thing. It's like the people that our mass culture is saying are not forgiving, right? So the black community here, it's like they're holding on to anger from, 400 years of oppression in one way, shape, or form, right? But in fact, the reality is it's immensely forgiving. And that's the story that kind of got glossed over. We told it, but what if we actually take that part of the story and expand it into a much bigger story? All the ways in which people who are who are not only minoritized but come from groups that have a history of being brutalized and discriminated against and really treated in such horrific ways, yet still find space to be powerfully forgiving. That's a story to be told. And you're saying that, and I'm just saying, can we just talk more about that? Because I think that would shift the way a lot of people come to understand these relations.
Because it's important. Because that in and of itself has a lot to do with the history and the things that are just inherited from birth and just from walking around. Even if you could be in a community of people of color who've equally never seen another white person and don't know shit about what the fuck is going on. But that person still has an inherent emotion when they see a cop. Yeah. Not by an accident. So...
And yet okay, go ahead.
This is important, and also why, even though it's a human event, why it stands out that she's white and a woman is because everything that comes along with it. It's like when I had an example in my head specifically, and it still pertained to just like a saying or something that you do or say. And in the moment, or that isolated by itself is not that big of a deal. But because all this other things that fed to the definition of it, or like just what comes along with it, still weighs. So for me, the outcome with this, if she was not who she was, if she was a white man even, would have been different. Because...
What do you think? You think he would have got more time or something? Or do you think that maybe people would
I don't know more time, but I don't know if it's a masculine and a feminine thing.
You think the family would have been the black family would have been less forgiving?
No, not at all. Because when it comes to minoritized group and their power of forgiveness, is that it's our own power controlling what we can do with ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Because all our other branches of control
this is what I'm
aren't there.
Yeah.
So
this is what I'm talking about. This is the conversation that it's a much bigger conversation that we should be having because
it's a form of control.
Dude, it's a form of control. Look, from day one, white people used fear of former slave. First off, they were able to maintain slavery for so long with really hold on to a slave system with relatively few weapons of control, relatively few means to really control such a large population of people who were in bondage, okay? And one of the ways they were able to do that was to bring everybody, even non-slave holders, bring everybody into the process of policing an entire culture, entire country. And so the way to do that was to build an immense fear of black people, of slaves, right? And then it became former slaves once we hit 1865 and it's former slaves. But yet you got to continue that fear. And in fact, what we saw again and again was slaves, and we see this. I was just reading something the other day of a treatise that a group of slave ministers were writing in 1867 or something, which was like, look, we don't want to go backwards. We just want to move on. Just stop. Just give us a little bit of land. Just stop. Just allow us to just be free. We don't want anything from you. We don't want handouts other than land that you really owe us. And I think that we just see this again with Native Americans. We see it with the early Chinese immigrants who were just oppressed in these just horrible ways. It's just like, please just stop. We're not going to retaliate. We're not going to come after you. We're not going to try to... None of that. Mexican Americans, just let us be. We're okay. We forgive you. We just want to move on. Just stop. But people in power, their power often comes from not believing. If I believe you that you really just want to move on, then I have to actually act accordingly, and I have to treat you as an equal. And if I don't believe you, I can still hold on to my power.
Go ahead.
No, and I think that's some of what got played out in that courtroom. And that's a lesson for people, majority peoples everywhere. In particular, it's a lesson for white people. I think powerful lesson.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the first time I really experienced somebody forgiving somebody for a horrific crime was the Amish schoolhouse shooting. And it was 2005 or 2006. There was a guy who just, he went, so in Lancaster County specifically, but in southern Pennsylvania and in Ohio and Indiana and some other places, there are Amish communities. And so they're Christian, but very fundamental. They don't use electricity. They don't use cars, telephones. They have some exceptions to those rules, but for the most part, it's a very simple life. Was based off of, I think, the Quakers, based off of very traditional, simple lifestyles. And so they educate each other. They have their own schools. It's one room. It's called a one-room schoolhouse. And they usually attend it until they're 13, 14, and then they go out and help their families with their farms and such. So in 2005, 2006, there was a white dude who went into an Amish schoolhouse and let all of the boys go and then lined up all of the girls and murdered all of them.
Yeah, there were 17 people.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And then he killed himself.
Terrible.
And the wife was just beside herself. She couldn't believe that it happened. And there were some reasons that he had, and I think he wrote a suicide note and all of this stuff. And then the family, the Amish families, that whole community came behind and just forgave.
Yeah.
They were we have forgiven your husband for what he has done. Just mourn with us, because it wasn't just that we lost people; you lost someone too. Not just his life, but the image that you will forever have of him is completely changed.
Yeah, his children, everything.
I'm freaking 10, 12 years later, 15 years later, I'm still thinking about it every once in a while.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, that was a really powerful. That was a moment of a really kind of where some things shifted. I remember that. That was super.
That was
powerful.
national news. Yeah. We had friends who just moved to Wisconsin, and they were like, "What the heck just happened?" Literally, they moved a week before this happened, and they were like, "Lecture's behind us," and then it was on the nightly news.
Well, it's the power of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
The niche. What are you thinking about I see your brain.
Well, it's just I saw
Kicking
a
around.
comment in it from Mark Batista saying, "I think it's wrong to slander this teenage boy for forgiving his brother's killer, claiming that black people forgive white people easily when there's so many more instances of whites forgiving blacks and blacks not forgiving whites, and it's a personal choice that he should be respected for instead of being grouped in so easily." And I don't think, for me personally, it's not slandering this boy for forgiving this lady. I think it's just the fact that when I heard about it, it seemed like she got her sentencing, she started to cry, and then people were like, "Oh, honey, it's okay." If that were the case, then that would happen to me every single day of my life because I'm constantly in tears, but no one's constantly coming up to me going, "Oh, honey, you'll be fine, you'll be okay."
Yeah.
And then it's just a frustrating situation because all the evidence that I've heard about this, it seems like it's either she didn't know at all what was going on, she just shot him, and then some of it's like she knowingly went in, something like she had arguments with him in the past or something like that.
No, that's not true. None of that is true. None of
Yeah,
that is true. She had
I'm
no
hearing a lot of
conne-
stuff
I know, but you
from
hear
a lot of
stuff. I know, but
places.
you do. But none of that is not true. She had no communication with this guy.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of information, false information from a lot of different sources. I'm not sure how to feel. I don't know
Well,
how
okay.
this lady how she should have been sentenced. I don't know. I don't care. How I personally feel about that, though, if you think you find someone in your house and like they're not listening to you, that's when you leave and you call the cops, even if you are a cop, because you're not on duty at that point. You're just a citizen.
You're a private citizen.
And
Well-
even if you have your stuff on you, don't you still have a taser with you?
Well, here.
In the notion of the forgiveness,
No, but
that's
hang-
just not what we were doing, though.
Yeah, but listen.
It's a simple answer. We're not slandering. We're saying it's an important conversation to have, but it's
Yeah.
interesting to see.
No, but can you just go to the piece about forgiveness, right? Forget
Yeah.
about, okay. She didn't just cry at her sentencing. This was a really difficult emotional trial.
Yeah.
It's a horrific, by all accounts, okay? By all accounts, let's just assume it's a horrible accident, right? And she made a bad decision. He didn't make any bad decision, right? But she did.
Yeah.
And we all make some bad decisions that luckily I've made quite a number of them, but luckily I'm still alive or somebody else is still alive because I was speeding on icy roads. Or guys should know, I look back in time and I just think, oh my gosh, I could really have killed somebody. I mean, there are any number of things, right? My motorcycle, I mean, okay, so it's a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that a family comes forward and forgives.
I think that's an amazing thing that they can come forward and forgive her. I'm constantly just like, whenever I hear stories about people like this, like horrific thing happened to them and they're able to forgive the person.
Yeah.
Like that's just an amazing thing to me. Like you said, Blossom's coming. I still don't understand how he's such a forgiving person. And like that's their choice to do. Like that's how they need to heal. So I'm not upset with them for forgiving her.
That was like what
No, like
JC
no one's
just said. It's
yeah.
a point of
No
a point
one's
of
upset
power.
with them for forgiving. That's our form of giving ourselves back that power.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
well,
just
it is
the way that it was brought to me. Like I see stuff on Twitter. That's how I get most of my news. It's just the way that it
Yeah.
was put in front of me. That's
well,
how it seems.
so here's what I would say, right? Let me just say this. Here's how I get my news, right? I begin with the idea that most people are good people. Okay, it doesn't matter where, whatever. Most people are good people, and the vast majority of good people are trying or wanting to do good the vast majority of the time. I start right there. So when I hear negative things, I start with the assumption of, hang on a second. I just heard about these two associates of Rudolph Giuliani getting arrested. They're trying to leave the country on one-way tickets. And I start with, okay, listen. Let me start with the fact that not only it's not what it seems. Let me start with the idea that it's not what it seems. Okay? They're not evil and scummy and this and that and the other thing. So now let me investigate with that in mind to try to prove myself wrong. And that's how everything that I talk about in class, and when I give examples in class and so on, I'm always my own devil's advocate, right? Trying to say, this can't be what it seems. So let me, like the couple that wrote the letter to Penn State's football player, right? And you read the letter about his hair, and it just sounds like, oh my gosh, seriously? But I start with the idea, hang on a minute. They're good people. I start with the idea, they're good people. They're not racist. They just don't understand. There's something they're getting. They're old school. They're
Ignorant.
just like, okay. What's that?
Ignorant. Period.
They what?
Ignorant.
It's not necessarily.
Okay, ignorant. But no, hang on. Look at, I'm going to say this, and then I want the three of you to respond. I'm just saying this is my way of moving into the world, because otherwise, so I start with that. Now I dig deeper and say, okay, so now prove myself wrong or prove myself somewhere else. And the reason I do that is so that I don't make really bad, bold mistakes like I did last year. Remember the kid who was on the Lincoln Memorial lawn?
Mm-hmm.
The white kid, remember that? I talked about him in class.
Mm-hmm.
And he was with the school trip, and he was face-to-face with the Native American guy.
Oh, that kid. Okay.
And when you actually read the whole thing and you saw it, I'm like, and you saw what was going on with him, and why would I not believe the kid? Because, like, whatever, like, I started to see it in a more complicated way. I thought, whoa, I really pegged him, and I didn't do what I was supposed to do, which was start with that assumption and then work my way backwards. And
Right.
so I'm not saying anything about the letter writer to the football player, right? Nothing. I'm not really, honestly. But what I'm saying is my way to teach this class effectively and not make these really outlandish statements is to start with the assumption that things are actually much better than they appear. Now let me work from there.
Mm-hmm.
So like with the cop in that case, like I wouldn't read the Twitter comment. I'm like, hang on a second. I need to actually dig what are the fundamental key important facts.
Yeah.
That cops
I
get
could
paid
have
to
done better on that front.
Yeah. Well,
Period.
you're not speaking in front of all these people, right? If you were,
Well, I mean, now I am.
no, now you are. But so the issue becomes when you do that and you make a few mistakes and you get called out on it. It's like, oh man, okay, hang on. I'm looking like I'm not very smart here. I need to.
That's a really bad thought.
What's your bad thought?
That her tears is because she went the fuck to jail for it. Because cops get paid to kill, and she probably thought that she would have had to be on paid
All right,
leave.
that's good. Put that out there.
But-
how about this?
That's not a genuine thought. It's just,
I got you. What
I'm nicer
about
than
what
that.
about also this, man? First off, she cried way before that.
because she about to be spending the next 10 years behind her
No,
life.
well, hang on.
Behind
Maybe
bars.
she also cried, my friend,
I'm being real dismissive
because
right now.
she
though,
just
sorry.
murdered
Yeah.
somebody, and she knew it right away that she.
Is it the
murdered
first time that she
somebody.
just how long she been a cop?
What's that?
How long was she a cop?
Not very long, actually. Yeah, she was fairly new.
And people, even if you see a murder that happens or a killing by a police officer from somebody who is innocent, it doesn't matter how racist they could be or how messed up we might think they are. It's still going to tear them apart.
As it does, Mom.
It would
It's like soldiers.
dude. Even if I would kill an animal, I would be like, God, I just
The other
took
day,
the
I
life
caught
out
a
of this
fly in
thing.
my house, and I accidentally killed it trying to let it out of the house. I really felt like that was the fly. I was trying to catch it. I caught it, and then I killed it. And I thought,
And as somebody who is friends with at least one cop that I can call a friend,
yeah,
and I know him and his fellow police officers in their unit, it would be life-changing even if they killed somebody who was guilty. And so we always are thinking like, oh, these cops, all they do, like you said, they get paid to kill people. No, they don't. They technically, they get paid to serve and
the
protect.
vast majority never pull their gun.
But can we talk
let
about
alone
the
shoot it, let alone
origin
fire it.
of the organization of the police force in the first place?
Okay, hang on. We can go there about why the police exist
Mm-hmm.
and all that. I can walk down that path about the police being operatives of the state, operatives of violence. I mean, they really are. You get the state structure, and the state is wealthy people who have managed to procure an opportunity or secure an opportunity to organize life in a way that keeps them in power, because this is it. Power is in the hands of small groups of people. And then in order to achieve that power, you got to do two things, right? One, you have to get the rest of the people below you with less money, less power, less land, etc. You got to get them to believe that you belong on top. And there's always going to be a bunch of people who don't believe that. And so you got to have a power force. You got to have your soldiers next to you. And that's why we have the police. That's why the police were formed, as a way to do that.
But when somebody now in 2019 or 10 years ago in 2009 want to join the police force, they're not joining the police force because, oh, I'm going to be a part of really the domestic military. Like they don't think of it as like, oh, I'm going to be joining the United States version of the military, because technically speaking, the U.S. military can't intervene inside the United States unless if there's certain things that happen.
Yeah, the National Guard.
No, police forces are paramilitaristic units.
They are, and especially since we're giving them more money and SWAT teams and blah, blah, blah.
And
blah.
military-grade weapons.
But the important thing is when somebody is signing up, if
That's
Joe
not their
Schmo
intent.
is signing up to be a police officer, he's not thinking I'm going to be this for the state. He is thinking of serving and protecting. And
Protecting, man. They're always about protecting. Not always. For some, it's about violence. But
Totally.
the vast majority, they're social. They want to be social workers. They just want to have a gun.
Yeah, my friend's brother, he's trained to be a state trooper. Like I talked to him about it. His first thought wasn't, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to catch all the bad guys. I'm going to lock them up. I'm going to shoot them up. No, he just wants to make sure that his community in particular is safe.
Safe, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are people
Yeah.
scared of more? I don't doubt that people are going into the forces with that intention.
Yeah.
Because it can happen out on the streets as you or me, and I'm not going to feel bad if you get popped if you coming after me. But it's the perception of that. What does it mean? What does it look like when someone's actually coming after me, or is my life really on the line? So are you more afraid of this person in front of you with a fucking bowl of ice cream in your hand? Or are you more afraid of what it's going to do to you for what it means as a human being to kill another human being?
Okay, so listen. So here, let me throw that. One of the things is that when you become a police officer or like a soldier, and this is one of the reasons we were doing the work with NATO that we were doing.
Otherwise, why is it so easy to do it?
Oh, it's not easy to do it, actually. You'd be surprised.
At the frequency it is.
Well,
with the
here.
reasons for why people do it, it is. For what's in front of them, it is.
Actually, given the number of engagements that police have every single day, people touch their gun, in the process of just maybe not pulling it out, but even touching it with knowing that might happen, or pull their gun out, or ever firing their gun. It rarely happens. And so, given the vast number of engagements, I think it's like 2 million a day or something like that, the police have in the United States, where they are just talking to somebody, engaging someone, questioning this, that, whatever, all sorts of things, right? So what happens is people, when you become a police officer, it's like so many different things. It's like when you become a teacher, you start to look at you start to zero in on certain things, right? So if you become a cop, you start zeroing in on crime. So if you want to join the state troopers because you want to protect your community, well, how do you protect your community other than seeking out people who are doing wrong? And so you're thinking about it all the time. So I had one guy, one of my former students, clued me into this. Guys, this is like 25, maybe almost 25 years ago. He said it got to the point where he carried his gun with him everywhere, his service revolver, even when he wasn't on duty, because he just started to get so paranoid. It was just like he was trained to look for crime everywhere, right? Even when he didn't have his revolver, even if he did, whatever, when he would go, anywhere he would go, he'd always sit with his back against the wall so he could see the door. So imagine, because he's trained, right, everywhere. He's like twitching all the time, looking for anything that could be wrong, even when he's just on his free time. And so this is just not all police. Everyone deals with this in a different kind of way, right? But this is you if you don't start out that way, very oftentimes you can get that way where you start to be a little bit paranoid and a little bit, and it's tragic across the board.
yeah.
It's tragic. It's so many levels.
I couldn't imagine. I mean, I don't want to be a police officer. I never really did. But one of the biggest things, like even when I got my first gun, my only gun, I didn't want it so I could kill an animal. It's a 22 bolt action.
Mm-hmm.
So like, according to the social justice warriors, solid. However, it was like, all right, I can go out and kill a squirrel, but I was like, I don't really want to. It's just cool to have, right? And so I think with police officers, it's not like I want to, like you said, focus in on the crime. They just want to make they want to protect for the mass majority of all of the police officers. However, there are the ones who are the bad ones who make all of the others look bad because the media is like, look at this cop who did this horrible thing. We rarely ever see the cops that do good. And when we do see the cops that do good, it's like, hey, this cop didn't kill 3 people today. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, the media is so skewed in how we talk about it. Like, for instance, the State College Police, there is not a police force that I know that's better, really, than the State College Police. Some of the things that they do, like, they really focus on speeding tickets and stuff like that. Like, I'm not a big fan. But when they killed that guy, it was like, and they did it, and it was horrible, and they shouldn't have, in my opinion. However, everyone's now framing them as like, these people are just trying to kill blacks. It's like, what are you talking about? It was an awful situation that was handled extremely incorrectly. The police officer shouldn't have been the one to respond, and it should have been somebody else. But the situation happened. But it wasn't like every police officer is a horrible person because of that. And it's the same thing for the Dallas cops. Like, this woman made a horrible mistake. When I first saw it, I was like, what did she do going into the wrong person's apartment? I know which apartment's mine. But when you have apartments that are exactly the same, especially inside these massive buildings, it can get confusing sometimes. And especially after long hours of stressful work, I can see how she may have gone into the wrong apartment, especially since it was cracked open. You know, if you're going up 7 floors and you're on the 6th one, you lose count. It's just like, oh, crap, and you don't read the number, and you just see the door open. Yeah, she could have used her taser, and if I was her, I would think I would. But who knows?
We all think we would.
She would think that she would.
You'd also think people would feel bad. But I think when the position that you're in shifts, I don't know. My perspective is different because I've seen shit, and I know I ain't feel bad about it because it's either this person or that person.
Yeah.
And when you are someone who don't get penalized for it, the way that normal citizens would get penalized for
I'm
it.
with you on that.
I think there's a shift between fear and a sense of fear and a sense of power. And when that shit don't play out the way you expected because you were in this position, you don't know what the fuck to do.
I'm with you on that. And then, listen, I'm totally with you. There's an inherent lack of fairness. There's by far and away a disproportionate power in the hands of those in blue, meaning the police. And so not a question. I'm 100% with you on that. Mm-hmm. And that's just inherently a problem for me.
People keep talking, especially like A-Turns just said, he was eating ice cream. Back to the Dallas shooting. Yeah. He was eating ice cream. He wasn't doing anything bad. We all are agreeing that he didn't do anything bad and a mistake was made. But imagine that you live in a townhouse of like 20 houses, and you live in apartment 9, and you accidentally walk into apartment 10. It's one thing when you just, you walk in, you're like, oh crap, I am in the wrong house. But I'm sure all these apartments probably look similar. And this isn't trying to explain it away. I'm just trying to get us into the mindset that any of us could have made this mistake. Yeah. And when you get to any of us could have made this mistake, you get to a personal level of forgiveness. And I think that's where that family went to, of it could have happened to anyone. It's a horrible mistake. Let's move past this. And the best way for us to do that is to forgive.
But for this conversation, in response to what this person is doing, or what you were starting off with the comment, is that what the conversation is, or for me anyways, is because these are isolated incidents, but there's a history with it. And the conversation, if it was a white family, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. I don't know if that's fair or not, but there's a reason because there's a history behind it.
Yeah,
and so that's just the point of the conversation is about how things played out and the take on it. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit more dismissive and not really caring. Just for today, I'm someone I like to take different perspectives on things. But right now, all I have is my experience as a black woman in America, and I'm from Philly. So like I said, I've seen some things, I ain't feel bad about it.
And-
Also, to answer this person's question, Afro Puffs by Lady of Rage. It was a question maybe like 40 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
So when I asked Nisha, and
Yeah,
I
don't
like
touch
her
my hair
song
by
for
Solange.
natural
You guys
hair,
should know the question if you
it's
asked it.
Afro Puffs by Lady of Rage.
Yeah, we just
That's
forgot.
been like on my mind the
Also,
whole
people
time.
on the stream say that we're generalizing. I'm not sure how to feel about that because I'm not sure if we are.
Well, some of
I can see how
what
you
we
are.
do is generalizations. We have to generalize, but
Well-
it's the way in which we apply the generalizations that makes
Mm-hmm.
the difference. It's like whenever it's going back to the letter thing, like depending on the way in which you are saying the same exact thing, the way in which you frame it is going to completely change the way that you view it.
Yeah.
So if that alumni would have written a letter to the university and said,
Yeah.
hey, I think we should get back to the dress code. We shouldn't have players with visible tattoos, long hair, and beards. Totally, this wouldn't even be a conversation. But since he sent it specifically to a black person and used specifically the word dreadlocks, that's why it is a racist letter.
Nasty.
And nasty or awful or whatever he said. So it's all about the way in which we present these things. So when we make generalizations, we have to make these generalizations realizing that there are people that aren't fitting into that, and we have to have that conversation. It's like, well, you can't make a generalization about all black people and how only black people wear dreads. Well, we aren't, but we're saying the large percentage of people who have dreads are black, and if we can't get to that agreement right there, then we're just having a conversation of, well, not everyone's like that. Well, not everyone's like that.
Well, yeah, and that's what makes these kinds of conversations just incredibly
Necessary.
difficult. Yeah, necessary, but also really difficult, right? It's like
Difficult,
you got to be
sure.
able to say something about populations of people while generalizing. No, but saying it in you have to be able to generalize to larger populations, but doing it in such a way that you're never ever talking about all people in that particular population. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons I start with. For example, I start with the idea that most people are good and have good intentions. The vast majority of people have good intentions the vast majority of the time. I start there. I think that's inherently true, right? If you think about just human behavior, right? I mean, that's just how we are, right? Some people are rotten, but even those rotten people are good much of the time. So that's a generalization, but like you got to say it in a way that's still can account for other possibilities. Hey, man, I just pooped out right there. What is what are we? What else do we have to respond to that we need to
There
respond
was something
to?
else I can't recall. Let me see if I can scroll and find it. I don't know who this abracadabra person is, but don't even. Can we not?
Yeah.
Don't respondable.
Hey, by the way, this Tiana.
I like you.
Navira,
I
listen,
fucks with her. I like her comments.
please kill in the United States. Please kill more white people than two black and brown people. Just on the nature of numbers, they kill more innocent white people than they do black people. Just on the nature of the numbers. Proportionately speaking, however, proportionate to the population, police kill more black Americans and innocent black Americans than they do in white Americans and innocent white Americans. It's not a great deal more, but it's more. And we, the thing is, so many white people who are killed by the police, and just in a way that is really wrong, and they're wrongly killed by the police. Many white people will just kind of leave it up to the justice system to work things out and for them to bring them justice, right? So if I'm white and someone in my family or a loved one or someone close to me is killed by the police and it's unwarranted and they're really murdered by the police, I'm much more likely to leave it up to the justice system to just kind of play out, to bring the police to justice and to get justice for my family member or my friend. Whereas black people and brown people, but especially black people, are less likely to believe in the fairness of the justice system because of a long history of the justice system not being fair to them. And so they're much more likely to go out in public and demand justice, protest, have a march, have a sit-in, make something happen and push for things. So white people will sit back and let things play itself out. Black people are more likely to say no. So therefore, the cases of where police murder white people are less likely to make the front page of the news because white people don't push them onto the front pages of the news, whereas black people and brown people are more likely to demand that something happen. And when you have a gathering or a protest or something, the media are going to come out and cover it, or you're going to go out and mobilize the media to cover it. And a lot of times the media only cover stories when they're being pressured to cover stories. And so black activists or black ministers, people in the church will demand sometimes that the media come out and actually address something, right? But white people rarely do that.
And that also connects to like a comment that was made a couple of minutes ago about like 97% of black people who are in jail did serious crimes. And it's like, yes, however,
no, hang on, that's not true.
But it's not but it's not true. But even if you want to say, okay, hypothetically, most people who are going to be in jail actually did commit crimes, it's the fact that white people could commit the same number, especially when you talk about drugs, it's the same number of people who are black and white committing the same crime, but black people are more likely to be arrested for it. So
that's pretty clear. I mean, we definitely see that. No, but black people, look, there's a higher crime rate in the black community.
Or planted.
Let's also be clear about that. Black people are more likely to commit crimes than any other group. As far as commit crimes, actually really commit, so they are. But you can connect that to class. There are lots of things to connect that to, including class. Mm-hmm. So it's not so significantly higher that it. But going back to the other thing, so people have an idea that, the media only focuses on the fact that when police kill a black person, that's the only time the media will come out because the media has a liberal bias and so on. Well, actually, that's not true. It's like the media are going to focus on what is the news and lots of things are news, but the media are going to focus on places where they're being pushed to focus on. And so if white people aren't pushing issues, it's not going to happen. Media won't show up.
It runs on money, and more people are going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if a white person does something horrible and it's not going to get many money, they're not going to show it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big, I mean, it's not that they're not going to show it. So hang on, that's a generalization. You have to be really careful about that. That was
they're less likely though.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Let's just go with these extreme situations.
Well, right? But if a white person if they commit the same crime that a black person would, and the black person is televised on local TV, and the white person is less likely, I would assume, because it's going to be picked up by less people. Less people are going to care.
It's hard to say.
However, if it's a horrible crime, like for instance, all of the mass shootings have been mostly white people.
Yeah.
And those are picked up by the media because obviously that's going to bring in more numbers. So
it could be just something as simple as a carjacking or something. I don't know.
Somebody asked.
It's hard. It's so hard.
Dude, the thing that I've been talking about all week with everybody is life is so complicated because we get into these conversations and it's like I can see 15 different ways in which there are different answers for it. Somebody just asked, why are black people more likely to commit crimes?
Well, the biggest issue is class. So people who have less power and less money are more likely to commit crime. Well, first off, hang on. Let's talk about what kind of crimes we're talking about. If we want to include all the white-collar crimes and tax fraud, if we really want to bring all that in, then people with more power and wealth probably commit more crimes than anybody else, right? It's more just on the basis of opportunism. So if we want to include all crimes, jaywalking, I mean, one thing after another, it's like, okay, that's a different story, right?
Taking 2 newspapers that are free.
Yeah,
that's a crime.
Exactly.
If you see a newspaper that's for free, you can only take 1. If you take more than 1, you're breaking the law.
Yeah. So, but when we really isolate it down and look at crime rates, and we see that black crime rates are on average higher than white crime rates, and if we control for class, for social class, income, and wealth, and so on, they mostly even themselves out.
Oh my God, I just had a thought.
Yeah.
I just had a thought.
Oh my God, here we go.
She just did a thing.
I'm experiencing.
Dude.
It's kind of like backwards or like a rewind. It was at the numbers when for cops killing more white citizens. Mm-hmm. Numbers are always tricky because I think it depends on what you account for. So even if it was equal, that don't add up because there are more white people in America than there are black people.
No, this is what I mean. No, this is why it's percentage wise, right? So white cops kill more white people than they kill black and brown people, but proportionate to the population. More black people are killed. Higher numbers of black people are killed because of percentage. Yeah. So, but you know, it's not as high.
And the same thing with the crime rates.
Yeah, it's not as high as many people think that it is because it's just these are the stories that'll come out in the news, and it's only because the black and brown community, but particularly the black community, just forces us to have this conversation about police violence. Otherwise, you know, no one's talking about it. Most white people aren't thinking about it. They're just like, they have this idea that police are here to protect us. No, they're not. They're here to protect. Primarily, they're here to protect the state, and the state primarily is the powerful, and so
they're trying to control us.
Yeah, it's like come on, man. They're going to protect some people way
and
more.
And that comes at a cost, and you make money the more brown bodies you put in prison. So hush.
We could also talk about private prisons, but that's
for-profit prisons.
Dude, I saw that another state just said
and
no to all
the
their
13th
closing
Amendment.
down all their private prisons.
The 13th
What's that?
Amendment?
Slavery.
Oh, I thought
Hey,
you were
listen,
going to talk about the Fourth Amendment, because the Fourth Amendment is probably the number one amendment that's broken constantly within the United States. Search and seizure.
Nah, I'm saying how this one is in place for a reason.
Which one?
The 13th, that's making slavery legal. If it's a crime, if it's punishment, if it's prison.
Yeah. Listen, man.
That's why they're paid 13 cents an hour.
Let's not talk about it. But let's go back to the chat. What else do we have to answer? Because we're going to be closing.
Yeah, if anybody has any last questions.
I just remember someone saying that black people are more sensitive, and I'm not sure how true that is, but I know I'm a sensitive person, and I'm over dramatic. So
We're
I think
not
black
bringing
people
no
are
attention
less
to that.
sensitive, actually.
That was an abracadabra comment, I think.
And then someone said something about
Wait,
we can talk about
you,
the failures
can
of
you
white
say,
people.
No,
What?
go back to the sensitive one before you do that one.
What about
So-
it?
What?
We're all agreeing that actually black people are not more sensitive.
I don't know if black people are more sensitive or less sensitive. I know I'm sensitive and I'm over dramatic. That's what I was saying.
The niche, dramatic.
I know. Who
Drama.
would have thought?
Drama niche.
Drama niche.
I have such strong
JC.
feelings.
Hey, let's call it. Can we? That's your new name, Drama niche.
I'm gonna have a new name every week at this
No,
point.
this is it. This is what it's going
We
to
have
be.
a new
from here on
podcast
out.
intro every week.
Drama
Janice
niche.
is going to have a new
Okay,
nickname.
JC, well, you're saying black people are not more sensitive?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Why would we be?
Why do you think?
We fucking carried you. And
What?
deal with all this other shit.
Dude.
And still dealing with all this other shit. Still make everything out of nothing.
I think that most people don't really have any idea what.
No, you
But
don't.
black people
And
have
then in
gone
today,
through.
it's even more interesting
Yeah.
because the conversation around mental health in the black community and like therapy and stuff like that, not a thing. And how we cope or the ways that we properly go about traumas is not a conversation in the black community or as big as it should be with the conditions and specifically with black men. But it's so funny because there's this conversation on the lack of it for somewhere that's needed for extreme circumstances, for things that you do, things that you see, and just the environment of certain places. Me specifically, I can only speak for Philly, or maybe generally cities and urban places.
But like North Philly.
But
or
I don't know white people who go to therapy for, to me, the most minute thing,
Yeah.
or who can't function, or who can't cope or deal with conflict.
Yeah.
Or if you have this dependency, because everything is done for you or set up for you, going to college is just like, oh my God,
I got you.
my mom's not washing my clothes. What am I going to do now? I have anxiety. Like, excuse me?
Yeah.
It's like,
If that's the case, I should be going to therapy then.
Our
Like,
problem-
Dude, everybody
yeah,
should
everyone should be going to therapy. But if it's like,
Maybe you
don't
wouldn't be a
equate.
drama niche. You
Wow,
would just
okay.
be a niche.
So
I feel
I-
personally attacked now. I'm gonna
so
go to
to talk
therapy.
about on a grand scale with systematic things and a history that's already played out and where we are today, if that shit flip,
Listen,
you don't even have the blueprint of what the fuck
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So-
Dude,
Other than pray.
we're dropping a lot of F-bombs.
I'm sorry.
JC
A
over
lot.
there.
Joy just took all the F bombs for the
This
entire
is just how I
semester.
talk.
All right, you can talk that
So-
way. You're from Philly.
I mean, we're also
I
on
mean,
a
some-
podcast
I mean,
called
if
You
I-
Can't Say That.
The
So
greatest excuse
Oh yeah, you can't say
is
that.
I don't know.
No, listen. I'm gonna go with you on I think that it's like the reservations, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Indigenous Americans, Native Americans, people really have no idea what goes on, man.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. They don't understand. They don't understand the poverty. They don't understand the violence. They don't understand how much of the violence is actually perpetrated
It's just
by
two different extremes.
white people. They
Like,
don't.
you have people who are grown and still got their parents paying for their bills and shit. People
Yeah. No, I think
at
people
home
just
are
don't
like,
know.
we have kids who are parents to their parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like-
I got you, man.
Get out of my face.
So I think we
Okay.
should get to final thoughts. However,
No, drama niche had one. Okay, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, Darnisha and I looked at each other because we both saw the same comment, and
Go ahead.
I don't even know how to. Okay, the comment was, "Racism will not be solved if Africa don't get their shit right."
Africa?
Yeah.
Or Africans?
Just
African
Africa.
Americans.
Yeah, just Africa,
But-
because apparently Africa is a country and we can generalize now.
No. That's not,
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
not saying that.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
just joking, but
Someone called me out on that the other day. I know I got an email or something from someone that said, "You're doing a
because you made that
disservice."
joke in class.
No, it was just the other day. You're doing such a disservice to your students by constantly referring to Africa as a country. I'm like, when did I ever do that? I'm an I studied Africa. Hang on. Just what? Okay, but anyway, go ahead. So Africa needs to get it together.
Apparently, I don't get
I
the
guess.
comment.
I don't get it either because it's too large of a place for generalizations like that. It's
Exactly.
way too big, especially for the fact that whenever people are like, "Well, Africans need to like get over slavery," it's like, okay, only a tiny part of Africa was used for the slave trade.
Listen, to China. Listen, hang on, my friends. The Chinese are entering into Africa in a really, really big way. They're going to take care of it all. They're going to fix it all up. They're going to deal with it. They're going to get Africans to get it all together. So leave it to the Chinese. They'll take care of it. Just give it another 40 years.
40, they'll do it in 15.
That's 40. Did I say 40? I meant 4 years. They'll do it
Wow.
the Chinese way. All right, what else do we have? Drama niche. You had something else earlier. I like drama niche. That's your name now, pal.
Next week it'll be something completely
No, it's not
different.
gonna. I'm
So
sticking with this one.
It will be.
it will be something different.
There was another comment earlier that you were going to go to.
Yeah,
and
now I
cut
don't
you off.
remember. It's gonna take me too long to go back. But
Okay.
now someone said
Africa as a continent must get their economy right.
Well,
There's a lot of economies within
yeah,
Africa.
it's just,
Exactly.
it's a mess.
There
Once again, the
are-
Chinese will take care of that. Don't
there are
worry
a lot
about
of different countries in Africa. So if you're going to talk about
What are
Africa,
there,
you
like
have to acknowledge
4?
that
4 countries in Africa.
there are at least
13,
4.
maybe
At least.
4.
At least.
When I say stuff like that, I like to give the smallest number
At least
possible
4
and say like, there's at least 2
There's at
because
least
I'm not wrong.
there's at least more than one.
Exactly.
This is the thing, man. This is tough. That's crazy. All right. Do we have any final thing we got to address, and then we'll move on?
I mean, I just
Hey, next week, Bossum will be with us.
Boston will be. I'm picking him up on Sunday. I'm super excited.
Oh.
I'm getting a rental, right?
You are, man. I'll get you a rental.
Bluetooth,
Oh, yeah. we'll
probably
hook you up.
heated steering wheel.
Oh, yeah. Totally. All right. Final comments now. Let's go.
Someone said something about us like dissing therapists. I think it was something along those lines. But like
No.
everyone should be in therapy. Like
I don't think any of us actually did.
people need to talk about their issues.
Because
That's what this is for us.
so I guess my final thought will be off of that. 100% support every person going to therapy. I remember the first time I went, and I was kicking and screaming the whole way there. I was pissed. I was literally like I called a friend and we were talking, and he went to therapy many times throughout his life, and he was like, "Dude, just go." And I was like, "I don't need to talk to some person who doesn't know my life." And it
Why
was.
did they want you to go to therapy?
we
Who
can
wanted
talk.
you to go? Your parents?
We can talk about this during the queer class.
Oh, all right.
Oh wait, you told me this story. Okay.
But I loved going. I absolutely loved it. I had some ground rules with it. I was like, "You're not taking me to like some crazy Christian but like,
Oh,
so I chose this woman who was like pro LGBT, and it was great. Like we talked about things, and
cool.
the first thing that I wrote down on the like she gave you a questionnaire when you walk in, and it was like, any other comments you want to make, and I said, I'm not broken, don't try and fix me. And her first comment was, I could never see any person as broken, no matter how broken they may feel or people tell them that they are. And I was just like, okay, this is good. So go to therapy. Like, even if you're not going through something crazy in your life, like everyone should at least check in with somebody. It's good to vent. It's good to.
It's real hard. I don't know how to do that. I tried to go, and homegirl didn't do nothing for me.
Therapists.
It was really hard. Like I didn't really.
Well, there's the other comment saying that we need more black therapists to be able to understand our issues.
That totally.
Yeah, I saw
However,
that too.
However, most of the time, my therapist didn't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything through self-discovery, through her questions.
Yeah, it's just asking questions that you wouldn't ask yourself.
And trying to see the underlying things that are plaguing you.
Maybe
So
that's
like,
why she couldn't do nothing for me, because this is how I think anyways, and I think that's why there's a lack of it in the community, because we kind of, like, for me, what I've heard growing up is like, what am I about to go talk to this person for, this stranger? That's what I got friends for, or whoever I experience this experience for. So, but I guess there's not a control in that conversation for what a therapist does, like making you think or having perspective on things. And I guess you can just take that chance with whoever that friend is, but they're not a doctor. But for me, that's just how I already think. So I was telling her all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know half of it. And she's just like, well, you seem like you're doing fine. What do you want from me? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to do?
100%, you just had a bad therapist.
I'm taking it upon myself to do it because I expect that I need it, because I know what I've been through. And that's just what I said. And the guy made me the appointment for you. So, like, what?
You
and now
definitely.
I just talked to her about these pivotal issues, and she's just like, well, you don't show any signs of depression because, you fill out this chart, sleep habits, eating, whether you're social or whatever. She's like, you're fine. If you want, we could schedule another appointment. And I was like, okay, I didn't go. I forgot about it. But it was just like, oh.
You had a horrible therapist. That's it. Like,
wow.
like when I went in, my therapist was like, there's nothing wrong. Like, it's not like you're depressed or angry. Like, there's no signs of suicide or threatening other people. But, like, if you want to keep coming and talking, go for it. And I would just talk to her about everything that was going on in my life. And even things that weren't connected to my sexuality. Because I went for that specifically. But, like, I would talk to her about everything. She was like, how's work doing? Like, how's school? And because I was a sophomore at Penn State Harrisburg. And she was like, how are you thinking, like, how are you preparing yourself to move up to University Park? Or what experiences are you looking forward to? What are some scared? Like, she just walked me through a lot of things. So highly recommend for you to try a different therapist, especially, where was that one in Philadelphia or was that one here?
I was up here at Geisinger.
Don't go to Geisinger. Port Matilda's actually.
Which one was this?
Wait, hang on.
This was either Port Matilda or it was either Grey Woods.
I would just say try someone else. And
we have to keep going because people on the stream, we're getting too narrow, I think, in our.
Yeah, people are.
You mean like how we were
Go to a
actually supposed
therapist.
to end, or do you mean?
All right, final comments. Dramanish.
Drink your water, people. Have a conversation. We're sponsored by World in Conversation, so go out in the world and conversate. Also, who is our other sponsor?
Anchor.fm.
Anchor.fm.
Make yourself a podcast.
Yeah, make yourself a podcast. All the tools you need to make a podcast in one place. Did I do it right?
Speaking of which, we are now streaming. All the episodes are up to date.
Yes,
on
we are
iTunes
official on
and
Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. That's where we are.
Just look up
Anywhere.
Social 19.
Is that it, JC?
Oh, honestly, yeah, I don't know. I feel like today we talked about two things. We spent a lot of time talking about cops and stuff, or we
talked about hair,
a lot
cops,
of things.
bunch of
And
things.
I was low-key trying to think of other things to talk about because I kind of got tired of it. So I don't even know what my closing comments are.
Are you excited for next week?
Yeah, I'm ready to see Balsam. And I can't wait for the podcast, I'm assuming. So make sure you're here. Come next Friday because Balsam, our bull, will be here from Iraq.
One of the most forgiving people I've ever met. He is the sweetest person ever. I cannot wait to see him again.
I can't wait to pick him up on Sunday.
Yeah, that's about it.
On Sunday morning, I'm traveling down to DC to go pick him up. And on our way up, we're going to stop at my parents' house and have lunch.
Dude,
That was nice.
It's gonna be really
man.
fun.
All right, and for me, I'm another week, another
What a
week
way.
closer to death.
Another
The
week,
sweet-
another
sweet
person calling you a
relief.
racist.
Yeah.
Alcohol?
We're all
Alcohol.
good.
I cannot support alcohol because I'm underage.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's
Oh, no,
good.
I was just
Hey,
looking
listen,
at the comments.
Peace
I don't
out,
know what's going on.
everybody. Thanks for joining, and we will catch you on the next round.
Do good
Tuesday.
today.
You gotta say bye, Jeff.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
See you, everybody.
I'll put the camera on.
Do good today.
Bye.
Bye.